record button. All right. So we've got about 25 people in the room right now. I'm going to keep an eye on it and admit people as they appear. Hopefully I don't leave anybody in the waiting room too long. All right, good morning. My name is John Peskin. I'm a hearing officer here at the COGCC. It is April 22nd, 2021. It's about 10 a.m. This is our second e-filing training. Our first one was done on April 8th. And as a preliminary matter, I want to show everyone how to get to our YouTube page because we have now uploaded that first training there. I know there might be some people on this call who missed the first training. Our invitation list grew as we remembered some additional folks. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to show everybody how to get to the
multi-email forward, but before multiple emails at once. Start by selecting the emails you'd like.
Google's talking to me and I don't want it to. All right, give me just a second. Okay. So actually, I'm going to pull up our home page, but I'm also going to pull up the YouTube page. So if you go to our YouTube page and you go to COGCC, right here, we've got different playlists. As you can see, we've got hearings and rulemaking, operator meetings, technical guidance, etc. You want to be in the e-filing system one. You click on that. I'm going to hit pause. Over here is the actual playlist. So you can see that this last one was the first e-filing training. It was conducted on April 8th. And I highly encourage anyone who was not at the first meeting to go back and watch that. It's sort of a fundamental explanation of what the different platforms are, how they work, what they do and don't do. And at the end, we engaged in some question answering for probably about 10-15 minutes or so, where we addressed some questions that had been submitted to us. And we're going to have sort of the same format again today. So all that being said, let me just go back to the room and make sure that no one else. All right, I don't see anybody else in the waiting room. Okay. By the way, I think everybody should be able to unmute themselves. So if somebody sees somebody in the waiting room and I'm just babbling on, just give me a little shout and say, you know, so-and-so is waiting. If you could let them in, that'd be great, because otherwise I might miss them. Okay, so what we're going to do today is it's going to be a little bit different than last week. We are going to walk through, and by the way, you've got the benefit of pretty much the entire hearings unit on this call with us this morning. We're going to walk through what the system actually does from different parties' perspectives. And so we are going to go through a simple pooling application, what it looks like from the applicant's perspective, what it looks like from the hearing unit's perspective, and what it looks like. When I say hearing unit, I mean our support staff in the background, Angelica Amaro and Margaret Humecki, and then what it looks like from the hearing officer's perspective to actually move things along. And we're gonna spend a lot of time talking about the docket status, what that means to the parties, why it matters, why you should be paying attention to it. And to that point, I actually, just before this meeting, emailed out to everyone on the invite the first draft, so to speak. It's not the big, well, it's the first publicly released draft of our docket status workflow. It's just a simple Word document. I think it's 2 or 3 pages long. And what it does is it explains what the different statuses mean, and more importantly, who's responsible for moving it along from one step to the next. So the system can actually process the applications or petitions, etc. So everyone on this call, well, not everyone on this call, if people were invited that I didn't have their email, but most of the people on this call should have the first version of that status workflow flowchart. It obviously is subject to change. I put a date on it so we know what version we're working with. I think it was dated yesterday. So that is going to be something we're going to rely on as we work through that. After we go through a consent agenda example, then we're going to process a petitioned matter, and what that looks like, how a party files a petition, what it does to the workflow, how the hearing officer processes it once it gets to that point. So this is going to be, that's going to be the structure of today. When we get to the end, we're going to address some questions. And I know the last time we talked about, we were going to be addressing OGDPs as the focus of this training, but that's actually going to occur at our third training because we're still working through some internal steps and processes. That doesn't mean we can't ask and answer some OGDP questions at the end, but for now, the focus of this particular training is going to be on working applications through the system, both consent agenda and the petition route. And then next training, we're going to focus on OGDPs. So all that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kick it off by showing you the first thing we did was show you how to get to the YouTube page so people can find the first training. This second, all of our trainings are going to be uploaded to the same location. We are also working on, actually, let me see if this works. Hey, that did work. Okay, so from our homepage, I want to point out this little YouTube icon. It's not the most intuitive thing. Not everybody necessarily understands these icons. I mean, a lot of people do, obviously Twitter and YouTube icons. But if you're on our homepage and you click on this little YouTube icon right here, it'll take you right to that page I navigated to. But if you don't happen to find that, you can just go to YouTube and then in the search bar up here, type in COGCC and it'll bring up our page, and then you can find these different playlists at the bottom. By the way, I've been told that I go a little fast, so if anybody needs something repeated, or if you guys need me to slow down, just say it. This is very informal. We're here to have a conversation. I'm going to try to stop it at different points to ask if anybody has any questions. So don't be shy. Does anybody have any questions as to what we've addressed so far about YouTube and the structure of today? Okay, hearing none. So let me go back. I want to show people, and I have to give a big caveat here. We are currently in the process of refining and revising our website, especially from, well, not especially, I'm speaking exclusively from a hearings unit perspective. So there are things, oh, I've got somebody who just joined, sorry about that. Okay, so from the hearings unit perspective, we are trying to make the information displayed on the hearings tab more intuitive, more user-friendly. And so don't necessarily think that what I'm showing you here today, this morning, is going to be the way it stays, because we're having discussions about it almost daily. Okay, that being said, here we are on the home page. We're gonna browse to regulation here on the far right. Then we're in the blue horizontal bar, we're gonna click on hearings, where my little mouse is right there. Once we bring up hearings, over here on the right-hand side, we have these vertical panes, these vertical windows. Right now, this is where remember last week we talked about the three different platforms. We talked about Unity Client, which is the tool that the internal people utilize, hearing staff, technical staff, commissioners, etc. We talked about the External Access Client, or EAC. That's what the parties utilize to file applications, file petitions. But remember, I also highly encouraged people who want to search for information to become a registered user with the EAC, the External Access Client, because it's a much more robust searching platform than the third option, which is the Public Access Viewer, which is as basic as it can be. It requires no registration, but it also is not it doesn't have as many tools as the External Access Client. So right now, under Operator Tools is this first hyperlink titled Application and Docket Portal. That is the External Access Client, as we discussed last week. We click on this guy, and this is how you get to it. This is what the page looks like where you actually kick off an application and begin the entire process. So I'm not going to utilize this one because this is the production environment. I'm going to browse to one that is just a simple test environment. It looks exactly the same. And that reminds me, even though it looks the same, I need to give you guys some caveats here. We were working on this training as a unit, as a hearings unit, and we were processing it between the different workflows. And we learned that the test environment does not have the exact same functionality as the production environment. So there's going to be points during this demonstration where it gives us an error message and says it could not perform the function. That's because it's related to the email notification component that is supposed to go out whenever a document is uploaded or created or amended or basically anything. And so the reason being is it's test environment. We don't want the emails going out saying a new document was uploaded in docket number, blah, 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 because it doesn't really exist. So if you see those error messages, that's why, we'll explain that as we encounter them. In the production environment, that would not be the case. We'll just have to talk through those things. So here we are in the home page, the dashboard, if you will, of the external access client. And so right now, this is where normal things would live. And by the way, let me just show you what it, so there's nothing here because it says all docketed matters, and there's nothing here. It says item 0. Let me show you what it looks like in reality in the production environment. So if you log in and now it loads the page, you can see in the real world, it actually has 101 matters that have been actually docketed and are in our system awaiting adjudication. And so if you scroll, you can just simply scroll through these and look at every single matter that you want to. If you double click on any one of these lines, it's going to open the actual docketed matter. But I just wanted to show you what the difference was between the production environment and the test environment. So we're going to be working in the test environment. All right. So I'm going to be playing the role of the applicant. Margaret Humecki is going to be playing the role of herself, which is the person who moves these things along in the background when they need to from a hearings perspective. And Elias Thomas is going to be the hearing officer. So just to kick off here, I'm in this first window pane over here that says File Hearing Application. You double click on that link right there where it says click here to begin. Now I'm going to maximize this screen so it takes up the whole thing. So this first one is going to be a simple run-of-the-mill pooling consent agenda, but it's we sort of touched on this 2 weeks ago, but this one is going to show, now we're going to show you how it works going between the different groups. So application type, we're just going to select pooling. You scroll down, you see all the different types we have here. If it has an asterisk, here's a caveat. If it has an asterisk, obviously it's a required field, but the more information you give us, the better. And we are currently discussing what should and should not have asterisks. But for now, there's only a handful of fields in this entire form that are required for submission. But obviously, the more information you give us, the better. So I'm going to say this is cause number 407. I'm going to say that this exists in the Niobrara, comma, and Codel, because it says separate them by commas if multiple. This is going to be a 1280. Again, these fields are not required, but they help. We're going to say that this is generic oil and gas Inc. I'm going to skip these things for now, but let's say that some of these boxes work differently depending on which ones you're in, but some of them are drop downs like this, and some of them have drop downs like this where if you start typing, it'll actually bring it up. So we're going to say that this is weld. I'm just making this up. I have no idea if these lands are anywhere near these counties and municipalities, but I'm just making it up. So we're going to say that since this is a 1280, it's all, but that's only one section, which is a 640. So I'm going to add a line, which I just did right here by clicking on this. You can keep clicking that, add as many times as you want. All you have to do is hit remove if you want to get rid of it. And we're going to say that this one's also in weld. It's going to, let's put a different municipality here just for the heck of it, even though I know none of these are probably accurate except for the 6th meridian. And then we'll say that it's in section 11 and it's also all. Okay. So now we're going to come down here, put in attorney. I'm going to make Mimi Larson my attorney because she's just that excellent. And then if you do put in an attorney name, then it does require an asterisk gets added to this field here. We're going to just say her email is mimi@test.com. I'm going to skip oil field API, even though this is pooling and we'd want that API information in there. So we're going to skip this last facility ID name. Now down here, this bottom window, attach supporting documentation. This is where you'd actually upload your application. It's worth noting that there's asterisks right now next to application and interested parties list. We do not have an application next to testimony. We're trying to get OIT to do that. Testimony is required to be submitted at the time the application is filed pursuant to Rule 505. We know that it's not a required document, but please upload it or else you're going to get a notification from Margaret Humecki saying upload your testimony or we're not going to process this. So that's just one of those things where the system hasn't caught up yet to what we wanted to do. So I've got some test documents on my desktop that are just PDFs that say test. If you open this up, it would just have the word test. You can see it uploaded it. It gave you the name of the PDF. It also told you that it's the application. If you uploaded something by mistake and you said, oh, that's the wrong one, you can just click this button right here and get rid of it. Now we're going to come back to this drop-down menu and select interested party list and click attach again. I'm just going to keep attaching the same document. So now it's got the same name because it's the same document, but over here it tells you interested parties list. Again, same thing. You can remove it if you made a mistake. And then finally, you need to upload the testimony, which we're going to call the same document name, but over here it tells you what it is. So now I'm done. I've attached the 3 things that are required for any application submission. I'm going to come down to this drop down that says I certify I'm able to submit this information on behalf of this applicant. And then I'm going to hit submit. All right, it's going to take it a second because this is all web-based and it does take a minute to process. I'm going to wait for this screen to go away. At this point, my work as the applicant is quote unquote done. I'm going to hand it over to Margaret Humecki to show you what happens when it gets processed at the next step. So let me just stop sharing my screen and then I'm going to make Marg a co-host. Okay, Marg, can you hear us?
Yep.
All
Can
right.
you hear me?
It's all you.
Okay. So basically, I'm still waiting for that document to come through, and it'll show here. Like with the what John showed you before, the EAC had a whole bunch of things listed. This is the test environment. Therefore, there's nothing in there. He just created one, and we're waiting for that to get through the system. But if it was the real thing, there would be 100 items plus listed there. Okay, so here we go. We've got this document, which is pretty fast if you think about it, and you let the system do its thing. It moves things through pretty fast. So basically, what I do is I click on that. To activate that, opens up a window, and it will reflect the same form that John just filled out.
Eventually.
Yep. Okay. So here is everything. And so basically, it's not going to have a docket number yet. Hearing officer's not assigned. I'm going to go in.
Oh, hold on 1 second, Mark. This brings up a good point. Sorry,
Yep.
everyone. I wanted to, I almost lost track for a second. So if everybody has that email I sent with that workflow flow chart, you're going to see right now, as Marg is showing you on her screen, the docket status in the top left corner underneath applicant information says initial. And so what that means, if you look at that flow chart, you'll see, and I don't have it, I have it pulled up on my screen, but you might not, maybe not everybody has it open. The way we've described the initial docket status is that the applicant has registered, logged into the eFiling system and the docket portal and filed number 1, an application, number 2, an interested party list, and number 3, testimony. The hearings unit asks you that you're patient while this stuff uploads because it's not instantaneous, but you saw how quick it is. It only takes a minute, but it's not 1 second later, it's there. What happens at this point is the hearings unit reviews the forms and ensures everything's there. And then it gets a docket number, because you'll see it doesn't have a docket number right now, but that's because it's at this initial docket status, which is what is going to, that docket status is going to govern the discussion throughout this whole entire hour. So go ahead, Marg.
Sure. So again, there's no docket number assigned. I don't have a hearing officer yet. We'll take care of that in a little bit. It's pretty much automatic once I get past this initial here. And I check addresses and make sure the operator number is there, and there's emails and cause number. If you don't know the cause number, it's okay not to put that in. We have a internal process to determine the correct cause number if you don't know it. And I go down here and I look at all this and the lands, and looks like there's a bunch of stuff added. We've got the attorneys down here. And then I go down here and I actually do open up your documents. So I actually open up the application and compare the information there to what is in the top part of the form. And I look at your testimony to make sure that that is correct also. And for you the ones that don't know, that the 505 testimony is formerly known as 511. Okay. And then we have the interested party list. Okay, so those are the 3 mandatory things in order to initiate an application within the system. And then down here we have the applicants that participated in this. Could be, a paralegal or hearing assistant or legal assistant can be the applicant, and then they also the system pulls the 1 or more attorneys here. Up to 2, I think we've got that right now. And so I get down here and then I go back up to the top. Okay, so then I'm going to go and I'm going to notice the hearing, add the hearing date to the notice. Okay, so we're going to go here and then we'll just do.
And as Marg is doing this, I think it's important to note for everybody listening that pursuant to the Oil and Gas Act, as well as our own rules that require certain deadlines and timeframes, we have to have a line in the sand, so to speak, to calculate the noticed hearing date when that application comes in. So we have chosen to use the date that the application is submitted as the date to calculate all of those deadlines from. And so when the hearing officer gets to the point where they're actually drafting the notice of hearing, they rely on these deadlines that are put in this box, because Margaret uses a spreadsheet that tells her how many days to calculate based on the act and the rules. And so it's important for the parties to know that the noticed hearing date reflected in this box and on the notice of hearing is not always the date that the matter actually gets heard by the commission. It's just the date that the matter cannot be heard before. There's no way that this matter could be heard before July 21st in this particular example, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be heard definitively on July 21st. It's just, that's our minimum.
Again, this version is a little bit different. The test is from production, so I'm going to go in and do a little change here, move it forward.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll notice, it just takes time. You can't push the, well, let's see what's going on here. All right. So I moved it on to the next step, which is the hearing officer initial review. Okay. And now that automatically assigned the hearing officer, and if you go down here to the bottom, he has been added, the hearing officer, to the interested party list. And now the hearing officer and the applicants or assistants will also be receiving any notification should something be uploaded. Now we have incidences recently, as we're still working on the system, where notifications are being sent out saying that a document has been uploaded. But if you look at the name, if there's a name next to, a document name next to name, then yes, something has been uploaded. If there's nothing there, it's just this, they're working on the system and you can ignore it. Or you can go in and do a quick look in the public access viewer so you don't have to log in and look for that docket and see if there is anything new in there. Basically go back up to the top. And now we have pretty much everything ready to go because everything has been filled out properly and everything's great. We have a hearing date, we have a petition date, that's great. So I'm gonna go up here and I'm gonna approve the docket as it's submitted. Now, before I do that, I wanna back up. John mentioned this, if for some reason you forgot to upload your testimony, or I noticed that the document that was uploaded was not quite the correct one, what I'll do is I'll reach out to either the attorney or whoever submitted the application and let them know what we found. Mm-hmm. And it depends, sometimes if it's an application replacement, that was just a wrong click done on the outside, and I'll approve it and you'll be able to go in and upload the correct application, and I'll delete the incorrect one in here. But if it's testimony, as John said, I will contact you before I approve this so that we can get that in line and ready, because when I do send you approve this and the docket number goes out, I need for you to immediately go in and upload that testimony so that your application of the 3 documents are in there is complete. Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically now what I do, we've got everything done. We're missing the docket number, okay? So I just go up here and I click on approve. And now we have a docket number assigned. And this is when the applicant and all the interested parties should receive an email saying that this is the docket number for this matter that you just submitted. So that's kind of how that works. And then I'm done with my part here. And then the hearing officer, after it goes through, he's going to talk about how the next sequential events happens. And I'm going to stop sharing now. And I think this is Elias's turn. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
You got to make him a host, Mark. So hover over his name.
Where is he?
Do you see the participants on the right-hand side?
Yep. Hide. Make host.
There you go.
Oh, it says you didn't do you? Yes, I do want to change.
Thank you very much.
All right, there you go.
Okay, so here we are. At this point, the hearing officer has received a couple emails, one saying they've been assigned a new docket and then one with the docket number. And so here we are in this docket. The status at this point we see is internal group review. That signals to the hearing officer and the applicant that it's time for COGCC technical staff to review the docket as necessary. This varies based on the docket type. Since this is a pooling, we're going to get a hearings unit review, a permitting review, a GIS review. With an OGDP, that's going to also include an engineering review and the OGLA review. And with something like enforcement or payment of proceeds, that's only going to get a hearing review. So at this point, we are waiting on technical staff to submit their review. And they do that, as you know, if you filed a pooling application or a spacing application through the system, they will upload their own document and everyone should get an email stating as much. If it's approved and reviewed, permitting will check these 2 boxes, and that signals that they don't have any issues with the application as it stands right now in this situation. You can also see that by reading what they upload. If they only check the reviewed, you'll notice that in the document they upload, they have some issues that need to be resolved in the application or one of the other documents. And that will oftentimes change the status here from internal group review to applicant issue resolution. And what that means is we are waiting on the applicant to either discuss those issues with whichever technical staff is involved, or else upload an amended application, amended testimony, et cetera, et cetera. What's important to note, and if you look at the workflow document, when that's at that stage, the applicant has to upload amended and additional supporting documents using the upload supporting document button. But your job is not done there. After uploading the documents, you have to click the return to docket after corrections button. Otherwise, permitting or whichever technical staff is involved isn't able to manipulate the docket, make this check, and push it forward to the next step. Which oftentimes you may have received an email regarding that. It poses an issue and it can cause some delays. So I don't have the ability to go ahead and check those boxes since I'm not technical staff. So what I'm going to do is manipulate this docket and push it forward to what would come after, let's say that everything's been resolved and permitting has signed off on this pooling application, GIS has signed off on the pooling application. The next step it would go to would be generate notice.
Elias, can I jump in for 1 second? And
Sure.
can you let me share my screen? I just want to show everyone what that might look like for one brief moment. All right. Okay, guys.
Okay.
So the reason, hold on 1 second. Oh, Elias, can you make me host?
Okay, 1 second.
There we go. I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yep. Okay. So very briefly, I'm back in the EIC. So say I'm the applicant. I've logged in. I want to know what's going on right now. I double click on my matter. Let's say this said, Elias already moved it forward, but say it said internal group review. That would tell me as the applicant that I'm waiting. I'm waiting for permitting to upload something. But say what Elias was talking about with the fact that it's applicant issue resolution. These buttons over here on the right-hand side, if this said applicant issue resolution for the docket status, there would be a button right here underneath upload supporting document that's not there. It would say return docket to, hold on a second, I want to return docket after corrections. That's what it would say. And so I would come in, I would upload the correct document via one of these buttons. And then after I uploaded whatever permitting identified as the issue, I would, as the applicant, I would have to click this button that doesn't exist right here in this view to send it back to permitting so they could re-review the corrected documents. So I just wanted people to know where that lives, what that looks like, even though you can't see it, just imagine it, it's pretend time. And then then it would send it back to permitting. So thanks, Elias. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to make you the host again as soon as I find wherever your name is.
I can still share right now. So.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so as the hearing officer, we are looking at the permitting reviews. We're looking at all the reviews. We're seeing them uploaded via email notifications, and we're just waiting as well. And what we're waiting for is, of course, that to all be approved. And once it is, it'll be routed here to generate notice status. This is where the hearing officer uploads the notices of hearing. So this is where parties, the applicant, they're just waiting for those to be uploaded. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. And as you can see, it takes a little while to recover. And so what we would do is, of course, upload a Word and PDF version of the notice of hearing. The system is designed to prevent us from uploading only one and moving this forward to the next step. So there will always need to be a version in Word and PDF form. Okay, and that's just a test docket. It's not an actual notice of hearing, it's just a template. And see, this is the error that we get when an email notification is not sent out. So we know if there's an issue with the notification system when we see an error like this. As John and Margaret said, since we're in the test environment, that's disabled, and that's why we're getting this error. I don't know if outside users would get this error when they upload a docket. If you do, it'd be a good idea in this case to email the docket as well to make sure that we receive notification that it's been uploaded, or at least email us notifying us that there's a new docket, new document uploaded. So I'm just going to ignore that. And now I'll upload the PDF version. Okay. And so at this point, the notices of hearing have been uploaded. Party should have received email notifications that new dockets have been uploaded, including the title of those dockets. Once that's done, the hearing officer is able to route this to the publish notice step, and that puts the ball back into the applicant's court. Which I believe will go to John to see that from the applicant's perspective now.
That's right. So I'm gonna share my screen. All right. So here I am back in the EAC, external access client. The matter is refreshing. I've got a status here for my docket that says publish notice. If I look at my flow chart, publish notice tells me that the applicant will serve the notice and application to all interested parties and publish the notice. And then you see, by the way, I want to point out, I said this in my email to everyone. The highlight, the bolded and underlined piece at the top of each one of these boxes is the actual status that you're in. The underlined party contained within the box is the party who's responsible for taking action for that particular status. So I just wanted to point that out. I said that in my email, but I just wanted you to know that as I was looking at this. So this tells me that the applicant must upload these documents here, and that once uploaded, the applicant must click route to petition period. This piece is incredibly important because if this does not route to the petition period, that is the public's cue to know that if they happen to log in and they see that it's in the petition period status, that it's their responsibility to do something during that particular moment. That's their time. If the matter does not have that petition period status, there's a potential prejudice there for people not knowing what they're responsible for doing at what point. So that being said, I'm back here. I see the docket number. I double click on it. I open it up. I see that this says publish notice. So over here, I've got on the right-hand side, I've got my action items. I need to upload a supporting document. I open that screen. Up here in this first dropdown, I have to tell the system what type of party I am. I'm the applicant. So depending on what you click here, it's going to display different results for the document types because different parties have different permissions to file different documents. So I'm the applicant. I'm going to come down here, pursuant to that flow chart. I'm going to file this certificate of mailing and service. I'm going to browse to it. It's just going to be a simple PDF. Over here, I have to tell it again, I'm the applicant, and then I'm going to hit import. It's probably going to give me some kind of weird little message here. Yeah, that's, again, we're in the test environment. That's not accurate. It's going to refresh itself. If I scroll down and look, sure enough, there's the certificate of mailing that was filed by me just now. All right, I also need to upload the proof of publication. So I go back into the upload supporting document. I tell the system I'm the applicant. I come down here for the proof of publication affidavit. I browse to it. Again, just a simple PDF. Over here, I say that I'm the applicant again. I hit import down in the bottom right-hand corner, and then it tells me some error message that's not accurate. I let it refresh, and then I double check, and there it is. I've got the certificate of mailing and service. I've got the proof of publication affidavit. I've complied with my requirements for the published notice docket status, and then I hit this button right here on the right-hand side, route to petition period. Very important. Click that button. Let it think for a minute. I notice we're running a little bit short on time, so we're going to speed it up for the next example where we show you how to petition. But right now, it did show me that I'm in the petition period. I come back here. Right now, the 30-day petition period outlined in the notice has begun. Affected persons may register and file a petition. Remember, the underlined party is who's responsible for taking action in any particular docket status. If somebody wants to file a petition, it's incumbent upon affected people in this particular docket status to file a petition during the petition period. So at that point, actually, let me go back to my flow chart. Okay, so we're gonna go the no petition filed route, which puts it back in the hearing officer's queue. I'm gonna close this out. If I refresh this screen right here, which it's doing automatically, it shows me that my docket is in the petition period status. So I'm going to stop sharing. Elias, can you still share your screen? Yep, there he goes.
Yes.
Okay.
So here we are, and now I can see as the hearing officer from this dashboard that this is in the petition period. As John mentioned, the biggest issue we're having so far with dockets being moved through the e-filing system is that applicants have not been hitting that route to petition period docket button, excuse me. What that does, John mentioned the prejudice to the public who might want to petition a matter, but for us, it leaves it in the published notice stage. And so it doesn't indicate to us that this docket is ready to move forward towards the consent agenda. It just sits there in published notice, which means we're still waiting for applicants to file those notice documents, which may or may not be the case. Now, as of right now, it hasn't been a huge issue because we don't have that many dockets in the e-filing system, or we haven't. But now we have about 100. So routing this is key to making sure this docket stays on track and doesn't get delayed. And as John said, this is just your normal petition period. We're waiting for any parties to petition. This is on a timer. So after that 30 days or to the petition deadline right here, June 21st, this will automatically switch to the next docket status, depending on what happens. So what I'm going to do is go around the timer just for the sake of this training. And assuming no one's petitioned, the next docket status will be generate recommended order. Now, if I went down here, I can show you the other docket statuses. If there was a petition, theoretically, it would move to hearing officer petition review, and we would go through these different statuses. We can talk about that briefly after this, but I'm just going to move this to generate notice. So when you see generate notice in the docket status, it's safe to assume that there have been no petitions, that the petition period is passed, and it's now up to the hearing officer to review all of the submitted materials and generate and upload the recommended order drafts that are going to go before the commission for review. Again, we can go ahead and do that. Oh. And it looks like I moved it to the wrong status, didn't I? Okay, so here we are. I've reviewed the information. It's all fine. And I've drafted the order to go before the commission at the consent agenda. So I will go ahead and update and upload those documents. Again, it will not let me push this forward without uploading a Word and PDF version. And the applicant and all interested parties will again receive an email specifying that a recommended order has been uploaded. Okay, and we check to make sure those are here. There they are. Okay, this can be routed to the commissioner vote. When it's routed to the commissioner vote, it's safe to assume that this is going to go before the commission at their next hearing. However, it's always prudent to check the recommended order drafts to see what the date reads in the order. It may be an extra week now that we're on a weekly schedule for hearings for the most part. Sometimes things get uploaded for a following week based on our schedule. But anyway, it means this is going before the commission imminently. And once the commission approves it, you see up here, approved by commission. We can check that. The hearing officer will do so. And it will go to GIS to be mapped and for a final cause and order number to be uploaded. And that is the basic. Once this loads, you'll see it'll go to GIS updates, and that's where it's going to get mapped, and the final order will be uploaded. And that is how the docket goes through the e-filing system when there's no petition.
Thank you, Elias. I apologize, everyone. We ran through this a few times over the last couple of days, but in reality, it ended up taking longer than we anticipated. So we're not going to get to the opportunity to show you what happens with the petitioned matter just because it's more involved and there's more steps to the workflow, et cetera. I do want to show you guys very briefly. We're gonna stop teaching here about the system and we're going to answer a few questions at the end, but I do want to show you that after the commissioner vote, and by the way, so this is the consent agenda route, because you can see on the flow chart we have no petitions filed, and we've got after the commissioner vote, we've got several steps that occur in the background. Our mapping people actually add this to the map, to our GIS map. We make sure the cause and order number are correct. The final order is drafted. We wait for the exception deadline to go by, and then the matter is complete and it leaves the queue. So there's several things that run in the background even after the commission votes on it. But you can see on the right-hand side of this flow chart, there's many, many, many more steps that occur if this does become a petitioned matter. And we can talk about that very briefly at the next training. I will say that the steps are substantively the same, except for when you get to that petition period, an affected person can log in and file a petition, and then that puts us in a different route. And we'll talk about that next time. We'll try to work that in with the OGDP discussion. So that being said, I'm going to stop sharing that, and I am going to try to get to some of the questions we had from last time. So let's see. Looks like the first question we have here is Rule 302 E2F requires, quote, other information that the director identifies in the completeness determination. That the person asks, am I correct that this information is not required in the pre-application notice as it isn't determined until the completeness check, parentheses, the pre-application notice is subject to the requirements of Rule 302E. The short answer is yes, that is correct. Okay, the next question we have is Rule 511, local public hearing. It's somewhat unclear to me how the local public hearing process fits into the timeline of a Rule 303 OGDP application. So basically, the short answer to this is theoretically that could happen at any time in terms of the local public hearing process. We would imagine that affected persons can raise that issue at any time. That being said, there's a caveat there that the hearings unit, or sorry, not the hearings unit, that we assume that the commission is going to utilize some factors in determining whether or not they approve that request. If, for example, if the request is made 2 days after the notice is received, or if it's filed 6 hours before a hearing is set to occur, there's going to be factors that the commission's going to utilize in determining whether or not that process takes place. That being said, the rules specifically grant the commission discretion whether or not to grant the request. So just be advised. Let's see, next question. Submittal of spacing applications as part of an OGDP. Rule 303A1 contemplates spacing applications be filed with the OGDP application if the OGDP application includes lands to be spaced. Procedurally, how should the applicant connect the two applications to each other when filing? Should the spacing applications be exhibits to the OGDP application in addition to their own filing, or should the applicant/operator first submit the spacing applications, obtain docket numbers, and subsequently refer to the docket numbers within the OGDP applications, as we will for document numbers pertaining to the 2A, 2B, and 2C. So we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and it's a good question because it's going to come up more and more. But we have anticipated, and we've said this before, we want everything to be in one application. We want the spacing application to basically be a narrative contained within the OGDP application. The same as if there's a request for a variance or something like that. If it's part of an existing, if there's a variance that pertains to an existing order. And so we want there to be a header in the middle of a page with underlined spacing application or spacing request, whatever you want to call it, but it's not going to be a separate document number. That being said, we did have a question from 2 weeks ago, and that was from Bill Zimsky, where he asked about the fact that there are spacing applications already filed on behalf of his client. Sorry to call you out, Bill, by name, but I didn't want you to wait another 2 weeks for an answer. You asked about the timing of how that relates to an OGDP, if you anticipate an OGDP is coming later. And I do want to address that issue with you personally offline, because we discussed that hypothetical with permitting, and Ms. Stanzik did have thoughts on that. I will say that what we want, if an operator is thinking about spacing but knows it's going to eventually be part of an OGDP, we want that to be one application. So in this particular case, we need to talk to you personally about it, but going forward, we want an OGDP application to contain spacing requests. So right now, it's not preferable to have spacing applications come first and then an OGDP application come later. So we're going to talk to you personally about how to address that. And we can set up.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, okay, good. You're welcome. And if you want, you can send me an email with some of your availability and we can set up a meeting. I know we're right up against 11 o'clock. I'm happy to go a little bit long. I've got Mimi Larson is here. If we've got some specific questions, we can also take some questions, continue to be emailed to me, and we can do it in this format. But if anybody wants to stay on a little bit longer and engage in some questions, we can we can certainly do that for a little bit. I know there's some questions still outstanding that we haven't answered from the original round. So I'm going to pause here and ask if anybody has any questions over what we've gone over today. I know it went a little bit long, but it's important for people to understand how these processes work, how these systems work, because there's a little bit of confusion right now, but we're continuing to try to put out this content. So I'm going to stop talking and ask if there's any questions.
Yeah. Hey, John, this is Jill Fulcher. Can you hear me?
I can. And I have a note here that says, call Jill Fulcher back.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
Oh, can you hear me still?
Yes.
Sorry, my internet connection may be kind of spotty, so let me know if it is, and I will do my best to correct it. And you and I can talk whenever you get a chance. That's just a little bit more specific, granular stuff. But that last question that you went over is mine regarding the submittal of spacing and OGDPs, either as one document or separate documents. And I understand where the position that staff's coming from with having everything in one application filing. Has staff considered down the road how that may complicate things, recognizing that the interested parties are separate oftentimes with respect to the spacing and the OGDP? I certainly think it makes sense to connect them all in some way. And if staff is leaning on the position that it all should be part of a singular application, that's fine. We were just thinking down the road, is there going to be procedural hurdles if a party, for example, has an issue with a proposed spacing unit, but not necessarily the entirety of the OGDP, or vice versa?
I'm going to ask if Mimi is still on with us, and she just unmuted, so I'm going to defer to her on that.
Sure, thank you. I thank you everyone for participating, and I want to just thank John and the whole hearings unit for putting these together. These have been very helpful. So yes, Jill, I mean, we certainly recognize that there are going to be challenges as it relates to being able to differentiate between individuals who are only able to protest a spacing unit. They may not have the ability to actually protest the 2A that is going before the commission. That's part of the OGDP. However, the commission really does want all of the spacing, the OGDP of the 2As, everything to be considered all at once. I know in the formulation of the rules last year, this question came up, and staff seemed confident that while this could be challenging, we would still be able to identify those individuals who are able to only protest a spacing application and only protest that 2A as part of the comprehensive OGDP. When someone is protesting either the spacing or a portion of the OGDP, they're going to have to indicate in their protest why they believe they're able to be a protestant. You know, what is the basis for which they're coming in. So while standing has obviously been expanded in our new rules, they still have to identify what their interest is. So we anticipate that in that process, we would be able to ensure that if someone is only able to come in and protest the spacing application, we would deal with that separately within the larger OGDP. That would be a subsection or a sub-hearing, so to speak, of that OGDP.
Okay, thanks, Mimi. I appreciate it, and good to hear your voice. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything for us? Okay, I'm hearing none. All right, I just want to remind everybody that we're going to get this uploaded to our e-filing training portal on our YouTube page. I might have another training next week just to go over petitioned applications, but we're going to discuss that internally, and I'll send out an invite as soon as I know. And I promise the OGDP application walkthrough is coming sooner rather than later. We're just working out some kinks. So I appreciate everybody's attendance. Thank you so much for being here. And please share this video, this recording, and the flow chart with as many people as possible. We want to get the information out there. So thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and conclude, and I hope everybody stays safe and has a good day.